Welcome to Tip of the Iceberg podcast.
All right, welcome everybody. This is Mike with Just the Tip Iceberg podcast. Welcome. We have a very special day today. We have my great friend, John Johnson. I want to get him on here. We are going to discuss the topic of technology and automation within your business, and who better to talk to it as somebody that's mastered it within his craft and in his business. So welcome, John Johnson. How are you?
Good, man. How are you?
Great. So introduce yourself, what you do, what your business is, and then we'll just jump right into talking about the technology side of it and go from there.
Cool. Yeah, so I'm in the dental lab, dental technology field, where we fabricate dental prosthetics. Specifically, my lab does, like if you're familiar with dentures or partial dentures or anything like that. So basically, it's a complete custom style of work. Every patient's a little bit different. We work directly with dental offices to facilitate that type of construction. And yeah, our end goal is just to get patients back whole again, something they can smile with, feel good about, something they can eat with.
So I know it's been it was about going on 2 years since you really, talk us through the journey of especially the automation and technology piece that has now become abundant within your business even on a day-to-day level. It's going on a couple of years, maybe.
Yeah. I've been in the industry for about 20 years now, and for the first probably 17 years of it, it was all kind of fabricated in an analog fashion. And my side of things has really just gotten into deeper and deeper into digital technology, where we're now doing 3D printing of different materials to fabricate these type of prosthetics. So it's really evolved from a handcrafted item to now something that's more designed digitally and something that can now move into print, which is getting us more and more into automation. And one of the really cool things is it's really transferring that creative side. Like before, in that analog setting, we had to be creative really from start to finish. Our processes were kind of set, but you still had to be skilled at every level. And now with this little bit of automation, you kind of have to be really skilled on the front end, and then some of the production starts getting a little bit easier. So it's been a nice transition for us.
So when you say that the automation part, is that so it went from it's now printing? Explain that, how that works with.
Yeah. So with dentures and partials and different stuff, we've used this technique called the lost wax technique, which is like as old as the Egyptians, where we fabricate things, we set them up in wax, we burn that wax out, and we replace it with whatever our final material is going to end up being. And now we're kind of bypassing that big step, and we're designing, same principles that we would handcraft everything, but we're actually designing that within the computer. We're sending that to the 3D printer, and then the 3D printer is kind of taking on that workload of where you'd have to have a skilled technician kind of complete that work. So yeah, it's very similar materials. Your end product is still very similar. But instead of doing a 1 by 1 by 1 by 1, now we're in this scalable thing where as many as you can print in one print
increases productivity of the actual product.
Right.
So Egyptians they had dentures back then? Is that
no. It's the lost wax technique.
Okay.
So I mean,
the technique was
it's talking about like pouring gold and different things like that. So easy.
So how do the customers and the end users? I know you work a lot with dentists and doctors and stuff. How do they see the technology or the automation end result to them, and I guess during the process of you doing your process with it?
Yeah, so one of the biggest things I think that from a patient perspective, like one of the best things that I would experience if I was in that position of doing it, is we have to work with impressions. And in the past, I don't know if you've been to the dentist or not, but they take the trays.
It's been a while.
They fill it up.
I hate the dentist.
They fill it up with impression material. It's kind of a goopy material. No one I've ever seen getting an impression looks comfortable, looks like they enjoy it. So one of the major thing is now they're doing intraoral scanning. So that's something that patients really get to experience. These dental offices that have the technology to do so, they're not dealing with that. I mean, basically, they're putting in this wand inside your mouth, and they're actually taking digital imaging from that, and they're able to share that with us in the laboratory so that we're able to fabricate based on that data.
And from their standpoint, I think too, you was kind of explaining a little bit off camera to me before we started today that they don't have to see the patient as much, and it speeds up that process with them too because of the digital.
Yeah. So
product.
yeah. So from the analog perspective, back when we were making each step by hand, when I would fabricate something to a point where we're ready to try it in to see if a patient's really going to like it all the way to final, we would kind of have to do that because we don't want to take anything to final that someone wanted to tweak just slightly. Now with the way that things are digitized and now that we're printing and that data capture is still there, we're able to take away some of those appointments because I'm able to take a little bit more risk because I haven't destroyed any part of my case because it's in a digital, form.
So within now that do you see the shift within your industry and within the business? What do you think the percentage is still fairly new percentage of overall business in the grand scheme of things? And how do you capitalize on maybe being at the forefront of it?
Right. So that's one of the things that I'm really experiencing the most right now is I go out and I'm doing some speaking engagements for other laboratory folks like myself. And some of the things, all the benefits that I'm kind of expressing to folks, some of it's falling on deaf ears. I think a lot of that's got to do with kind of the age of our technicians that are in the industry now. We've experienced quite a bit of reduction in like schooling. Mm-hmm. So we have, it's quite scary actually. We have baby boomers reaching a point of, they're all getting into that retirement age. They're getting into that point in their life when you're going to start losing some of those teeth. And they've got to get things fabricated for them. And we're about to get into an all-time high for demand, and we're at an all-time low for bringing in new people into the industry.
So does this technology, does it help the training side of things that they don't need to be as skilled or it doesn't take as long, or does that help any?
Yeah. So now I have the ability to do a lot more work like per person per se. But also the trainability. Like I said before, you still want to have a skilled person that's conducting the work that knows what they're doing. But when you're in kind of an assembly, you're able to take some of these pieces out. Like for instance, we do a lot of the design work, and that's where you're going to do all your thought. Pretty much, that's where you're going to set the whole thing up. And then from there, you're moving into the 3D printing. You're operating the actual printers themselves and the materials. So there's a little, you've got to know what you're doing, but there's a little bit less as far as the creative, the design part of it. You can kind of get into that bucket of not to say a lesser employee, but someone that's just a little bit less skilled or new to the industry. They're able to handle that. And then even moving forward we've cleaning parts, we're putting parts together, finalizing, polishing. So it's, for me, I think that it's going to give me the greatest opportunity to bring more people back into my industry because I can train them at a lesser level. They can kind of see, because like I said, when I go
they
talk,
can do a lot of the stuff for them possibly at some point throughout the process, maybe.
Right. I think it'll take on it'll take a form of, okay, I'm going to get into this as an entry level position, but I'm going to kind of watch over somebody's shoulder that's doing design work and become more interested, and just like I said, just give people more opportunity to get involved in this industry.
Sure. So now that you've seen a lot of what that has done within your own business and industry, does that fuel with your business mindset? Does that fuel anything else within your business that you look at technology or automation, and how can you implement that in other parts of your business now?
I think so. One thing that's really hard about the laboratory industry is there's really so many hats that have to be worn. Like there's the production side, there's the quality control side, There's you've got to navigate getting cases in and out. You've got office type stuff. You've got sales stuff, which it's probably one of the hardest industries to sell in because there's so many layers of folks that you've got to get through to finally get to a person that can actually make a decision to make a change and start working with your business. And then also from that, when these relationships that get built from these dental offices, they're so busy that the thought of change is actually really quite hard. It's not like going out and buying a new car or deciding on this roofer over that roofer. It's a pretty big decision for a relationship that you're hoping will last years.
Sure.
So once you get those clients, that loyalty is there as long as you can, deliver the goods. But getting to that point is a tough part of the business. So I think that for me on the automation side of things is figuring out where I can implement more automation, because automation inside of the production part of the laboratory, in a sense, we're there. I mean, we're always kind of tinkering and we're trying to find ways to get better and faster and more efficient. But I think that for my personal business, and again, I've got to wear too many hats at the moment, but for my business, it's to find that automation that's going to fuel some of those other line items.
Yeah, take things off the plate. And I'm huge on automation and technology within the business. Obviously, we use it with anything and everything, and we're always looking at it. And how do you stay ahead of that within the industry, because it's always evolving. So my challenge sometimes, and I don't know if you have this challenge, is how do you, when you're using tech and automation and you're pushing that within the business, how do you create that culture of the employee's mindset and how they need to embrace it? Because I think sometimes people just don't like change, and when you throw some technology in there, yeah, it could speed up the process, but the growing pains to get to that point sometimes is a learning phase, and some people just don't take that and run with it like you would like to. So how do you navigate through challenges, especially on, like I said, the employee side, and how do you create that mindset and that culture that we embrace technology and we embrace automation?
Well, the one major thing that comes to mind is really the competitive edge that we have implementing the digital side of things that we've already done. So it's kind of easy to lean back on that and say, look, this is, there in our industry for the type of business that we do, there's probably only 30% of other dental laboratories that are actually printing and doing things in the fashion that we are. And we have such a competitive advantage within the clinical side of things because we are reducing appointments. We are making the patient experience a little bit better. We are being more efficient with our results. It's really kind of easy to lean on the fact that like this is going to be our competitive edge. This is what we have to do to maintain that, because I like to think within this industry, I've got a small window to capture as much as I want to capture because of this big change, this age of technician, the technology that's in front of us that's still going to evolve. Like these companies are going to keep throwing stuff at us to try to keep evolving.
It's funny you talk about just a little bit ago when you're talking about baby boomers. I saw this stat the other day, and so right now 6,000 baby boomers are retiring a day. 11% of the baby boomer population owns businesses. So there's going to be an influx over the next few years of businesses coming open or for sale, or all these different options. And the biggest driver of who's capitalizing on that, or who embraces technology, who embraces automation. So that's why this topic is such a key topic that, like you said, is going to set up the future for most business owners and people within business, no matter what the sector is. So what's the challenges that you see maybe with future growth within your business and the industry and anything that's technology driven?
Well, kind of like I said before, the access to trained technicians is going to be tough. I've kind of taken on this approach of I want to be somewhat of the educator. So I think I'm gonna, in my own personal bubble, I'm gonna try to correct some of the technician issues that we have around here. But some of the challenges that we're gonna face with technology is there's corporate dentistry is a big thing right now, and there's probably a number of factors as to how we got here. But there's a lot of young people that are getting out of dental school, and they're having to go into these more corporate settings. And in the past, we were a lot more into these like family dentistry type situations. So
is the challenge that you still try to have that culture of a family-run business, but there at some point is going to have to be a corporate, maybe not a corporate setting, but a corporate mentality to keep up with. I don't know if you've seen a lot of like private equity groups coming into your space. We're seeing that on a daily basis within my industry, and they're gobbling up a bunch and they're partnering this and that. But the downside to that, a lot of times that we're seeing is the corporate side of it. It just becomes too corporate.
Right.
So my challenge is, how do you, at a certain level, when you get to a certain size, you have to do things somewhat corporately. How you track, how you do your KPIs, how do you monitor and manage the day-to-day business. But the mentality and the culture, how do you keep it to where we're all a big family, we're all a team, we're all moving toward big goals that we set and all that kind of stuff. That's the challenge I see. And I don't know if are you seeing a lot of that, and how do you stay above that, I guess, is you always try to strive for that. Right.
So, I don't necessarily see that in my personal business too much. I see it within the dental offices that we work for. You see the mom and pop dentist that's the family dentist, and there's a level of care that they can give that's a little bit higher in a way. It's a little more, hands-on. And then you see like those mid tiers that are kind of the best of both worlds, where they're kind of hitting those corporate marks. They're doing the marketing that they're supposed to do. They've got the teams, they've got the systems, and they're able to kind of teeter between giving that same kind of handheld level of care, but also, producing at a high level. And then on the flip side of that, you're seeing these corporate entities that's all they can give you is the corporate side of things. So There's a big concern, kind of like you said, like there's these massive groups that are buying, they're buying up as much as they can, and they're owning these dental practices. I mean, the dentist that, has to sign off on what they're doing, they're just a really high level employee. So I think that's going to be a little bit of as far as an industry goes, that's going to be something that they have to figure out how they're going to keep that corporate structure and keep the same level of care without those mid tiers kind of dominating. Right. And that's what I kind of see, and that's the part that I really like. I mean, I love the family, the smaller office, but that mid tier that spends the marketing dollars, that has the great experience, that but does produce. Also has the talent and can top grade with good talent within the organization too. I think that's at some level throughout there is a challenge. It can be a challenge for the business. Is how do you still attract the best talent and compete with a big conglomerate? And I think you got to look at it several different ways. But you have this great atmosphere, benefits, all that kind of stuff. But we also, we are very competitive in pay and all that kind of stuff. So I think that's definitely a challenge, but it also can help companies like myself and yourself, our types of companies. You can double down on those types of things and go hard after those that some of these big conglomerates cannot. So I think that's where you can get that competitive edge to kind of outshine on that. Now, you said there's a lot of buying out that's going on within home services per se. Do you see a big drop in the quality of the service that those type of companies that come in provide?
No, I don't. I actually don't, because they become so big at a certain level that they have to still have a great quality product at the end of the day, because they have to price themselves closer to the top tier of our industry. And to do that, everything has to fall in line to justify that. So they can't drop too much in product or quality. Now, what I have seen and do see is the talent themselves. Sometimes these big companies come in and becomes too corporate that then it's you're just a number and an employee. So we've been able to top grade with a lot of great talent at some of these levels that of some of these companies that are leaving them because they want a better atmosphere. So I think that's, again, we really target that side of it to top grade and get some better talent coming in. So I think I don't think their quality now. Their quality in the long run, some of them has dropped off because they are losing some of their top tier talent. So I think that's at some point they will. But there's also a lot of conglomerates and a lot of PE groups and a lot of that I'm friends with, and I know that they do things the right way, and they're able to keep a lot of their top talent because they do have a different mindset, and they do make sure that everybody's valued and employees are valued because it's so crucial at that point. You don't want to come in and become a great corporate company without and lose any side of it. So you don't want to lose the talent and walk out the door because then the business could start to shift and go the other way. So there are several groups that do a great job with that. So I think as a business as a whole, a lot of people look negatively to that and companies buying a bunch and becoming conglomerates. The way I look at it is if they do it the right way, I'm all for it because then it drives the industry up to a better level that especially in home services, there's so much business and kind of money out there that if you do it the right way, we all could be successful and be friends. And, I help, and work and talk to a lot of competitors that I'll never turn my back unless it's a company that I feel that is doing things the wrong way and not trying to improve the overall industry. And it all comes down to just what's the better product and end product and service for the customer, what's going to be best for them. So I think that's we've done a great job at Iceberg with that, and we've been able to again top grade and get great talent and continue to build, and that's why our success has been really strong the last several years. So with closing, we're gonna get to closing this. I want to just ask you a few questions, some personal stuff and business stuff as we wrap this up. But one thing we like to do on here is a question I've always liked is what are what you would consider like a Mount Rushmore that's helped you within either in business or personal that's helped you through life or helped you within the business. What are some key figures, or who are some key figures that you really look to or really help you hit a stride within your business?
Okay. Yeah. So I was really fortunate to work with a couple guys when I first started out coming out of school, and my educators in school were the type that, one would give you a hug and then one would make sure you studied all night to learn and pass the test. So I had
good cop, bad cop.
Yeah, I had great educators, and really, in a sense, the two guys that I worked with, they're both Navy trained guys, it's pretty extensive training and the type of work that they have to do while they're in the Navy.
Yep.
They were really great, and one was still kind of good cop, bad cop. One guy was tough on the business, the other guy was tough on the knowledge. And first part of the day would be bang, bang, bang. Let's get this production. Let's learn how to be in assembly. And then in the afternoons, when that guy was gone, it'd sit on this guy's hip and have him telling me about morphology and function and all these different things. And he, these guys were kind of father figures to me within the industry.
Sure.
Now I learned leading up to this, I thought about a lot of different things. I've always looked and tried to take the best parts of people. Mm-hmm. And I think that there's just some things that I've kind of pegged as being like good things that now in my life aren't, that I've just kind of seen. Like, for instance, like the guy that come in and we would produce and then he'd be gone. He built a life that was working from 7 to 1, beautiful life, spend the rest of the afternoon playing golf, doing whatever. But he didn't build his business any further than that. And that's the part that I go, oh, I took that little nugget from him, and I'm like, this is what life should be like. And it's really not.
Right.
You know, he created a life that he had to keep showing back up to and go 7-1, 7-1, 7-1. And I'd like to create a life where I don't have to do that.
Yeah.
So,
kind of a prison within your own business at some point. Not saying that's bad. Some people, that's the best way they operate too. So I just don't know that situation. But yeah, I definitely see, you know, and it boils down to what's your why, and everybody's why is different. You know, the great book by Simon Sinek, Start With Why, you know, that gets to, and your why might change throughout your journey. You know, obviously having kids, family, different stuff like that, changes your why regularly. And mine has changed over the years. So that's how do you get that inspiration, or what is your inspiration and what is your why? And that you found maybe from some of the mentors as well too. Yeah.
So, you know, within the industry, my why has always been the inpatient. We've always treated, I'm training a girl right now, and I was telling her, I was like, listen, you know, this is your first time getting into this. And imagine if your grandmother felt what that's going to feel like going in the mouth. And then that part of her, just that part of her grandmother having to put that in her mouth, it changed the whole idea of what her level of quality needed to be.
Yeah. That's good.
So that's something that I've always stuck with, and that's something, like I said, that's something they put in me. Now my dad's always been, dad's a lifelong plumber, dad's a hard worker, show up, boom, 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 get it done. He's always instilled the hard work. Going back, that's another thing. Pick up this great quality that drives you. Well, I'm saying you pick up that great quality that you see in somebody and you want to put it in yourself. And it takes a lot of hard work to learn and do the things and show up every day. But it also doesn't teach you how to not show up every day. You know, like ideally we're doing all this to make money. We want to make differences, but we want to make money.
Sure. And that's the older mentality. Like you said, to go back to the baby boomers, and that's just all they knew. And that's why technology is so important now, that it alleviates a lot of stuff within the business, that you don't have to do a certain thing a certain way anymore. So I think, I've seen that within our industry too. Some of the, I call them old heads because I've learned so much from a lot of mentors or guys that have gotten me to a point, but they do it differently. And not to say that's good or bad or whatever. Everybody has their own journey and where they're at within the journey and what got them to a point. But it's definitely a different way of thinking.
Do you see them doing things that they shouldn't be doing? Like, sir, your skill set is much higher than what you're...
Yeah, definitely, all day long. I mean, in my opinion, I think, they could definitely be served, or they could serve their business actually in a better capacity if they were doing it a different way or a different, side of the business. But some people, that's the only way they've known, and they've been in that, they got to do a little bit of everything, or they got to do just one thing. I like zeroing in on what's your skill set and what you like to do and what you're really, really good at within the business. And that's what I've come to a point within our business. Like there's a few things I do really well, and I just focus on them. We've fortunately been able to get talent around myself and the rest of our team that they're really good on certain things. Let's put them in that lane, and we've been able to scale because of that, and everybody shines within their own lane, and the business elevates itself, and we all work together. So.
Yeah, I think that, kind of going back full circle to when we started, and we talked about how the processes in which I had to work in before, which was kind of skill based from start to finish. It's very, very difficult to get yourself, especially kind of going back to like the mentalities of I've got to, if I work harder, that's better. If I work harder, that's better. If I show up every day, that's better. And it was very, very hard to think of bringing in talent, finding talent, training talent, because we have to know so many things to get the process done. And going back to like, I can do that in 5 minutes, or I can train someone and they'll take 15 minutes until they get really good at it.
Right.
That is something that I've had to try to teach myself the hardest is don't pick that up. It's not a skill that's below you, like as a human.
Sure.
But your skill set is higher than doing that step.
and that helps the business in a better way, probably overall too. And I think with like myself, a lot of people are just kind of maybe scared to. My goal is to be the dumbest in the room within the business, like wherever we're at or what we're talking about or for a certain topic.
You are.
And most of them, and just probably all of them nowadays, I am, and that's great because at the end of the day, I love that because that means I have talent around me that just elevates the business. And at the end of the day, that's all I care about is getting the business to a point that affects my why. Right. You know, my wife and kids and family, and now I get more gratitude out of seeing others within the business win or the light bulb go off and they see certain things and they learn certain things and they get to a point where it makes me you know, that's I care more about that than if it was me doing it or in that spot. So and that's where you get to where you can scale the business is I can only do so much. The output of myself is only there's a ceiling on that. But if I can get 10, 20, 30, 50 people around me that can get the output of what 80% of mine could be within their own lane, that's where the business can really scale and continue to take off. Right. So we've been fortunate for that. And I think, like I said, sometimes the mentality of business owners is they're scared of having too much talent around them that it could end up, you know, affecting the business in a negative way. And sometimes that might happen. You got to put parameters and SOPs and processes in place to make sure that the company is always winning and in a comfortable spot. But fortunately, you know, I've been able to have the mindset that you know, the dumber I am in the room, that means we're doing good things.
Right.
So, so what about? I know you do a lot of self development and stuff yourself. What are some things maybe you've gotten some initiatives from within your business or building the business or even your personal life, whatever, podcasts, books, or is there a couple like go-tos that you really liked or got you to?
So the biggest one recently is Dan Martell's Buy Back Your Time.
It's great book.
And doing some of the items within his book, man, just documenting your day and going, oh, my day is absolutely maxed out. Like this is my max output. So it's like, you know, you're trying to keep a growth mindset where you can show up to work, add more value to get more value. But if you have no more time, you have no more time. Right. So it comes down to being more of a math problem of trying to figure out where to trade this time into, like you said, into other teammates to being able to give yourself back that time to then create more value.
Sure.
So it does become much more of a shared experience with your staff, and that's the only way you grow. Right. So you have to, like, that's just the magical piece to try to figure it all out. And he details a lot of stuff like the SOPs, you know, figuring out what to say yes to and what to say no to, you know, and there's just a lot of
can't say no sometimes. Yeah.
Right. And I'm still the same way. I'm going to be coaching baseball, coaching my kids soccer. There's certain items that I won't give up.
Right. Well, a lot of people become firefighters at the end of the day. I'm so busy that I can't add this or I can't read a book or a podcast or listen to or whatever. And at the end of the day, but yeah, they're so busy. But when you look at it, what did you actually do today? You were putting out this fire and this fire and this fire. That if you delegate or if you have people in those positions, it elevates your time that you can focus more on yourself. I think I've always said that if you work on the person will work on the business. Yeah. And a lot of people just don't feel like they can ever get to that point because they're so busy doing all the other stuff that they really shouldn't be doing, or get somebody else to be putting those fires out.
Right. Yeah, and that's the tough part, is trying to figure out where you want to go with it, where you want to get your time back. That was one of the biggest things that I kind of struggled with, is what am I going to do when I get my time back? Yeah. That's what you know, you got to try to figure out. Yeah. And
sometimes it feels like you get this alleviation of time. It's like, what do I do? And it feels like you're not doing anything at that point, but that's how you got to focus and refocus. And what can you do at that point to take the business to the next level? And a lot of that is just spending time with yourself and trying to work on yourself.
Right. Like you said, when you're putting out those fires day to day and you're running a soccer practice and you're doing this stuff, there is no growth. It's pure survival.
Yeah.
And
holding your head above water.
Right. And that's something that you got to work on for yourself. That's something you got to work on for your staff. Like, you got to give them the capacity to try to continue to be better.
Yeah. Well, this has been great. Let's close this out. Is there anything that you want to add, anything we didn't discuss today? Or I'll give the last couple of minutes to you just to speak on anything you want to talk about. Plug anything, whatever you want to do.
Oh, no. Well, it's funny. The one thing that we didn't really talk about was a little bit was distractions. And I think that we both kind of have done things over the years where, that focus, and at the time, probably it's what your why is at the time. And for me, it was coaching basketball. I've coached basketball for I've been in business for 20 years. I've almost coached basketball for 20 years. Mm-hmm. And the big part of that was giving back to the community, giving back to something that I was passionate about as a kid. And then, once you get into it, you're pouring into kids, they're pouring into you, and it's just so hard to break away from.
Yeah, can take over.
And then you're a professional firefighter. Like, that's all you're doing is putting out fires and dealing with kids and trying to compete and trying to do all these things.
It becomes even harder to say no in certain things to certain people.
Right. So that was probably that's my biggest struggle with, I feel like I had a 20 years of business as a child, and now I'm about to have 20 years of business as an adult. And I really wish that
that's good.
I wouldn't ever take that experience away, but I wish I could go back like 10 years and start this like stronger business journey 10 years ago. Because I do think that there is a level of maturity that you have to be ready to talk to the public, to train staff people, to like understand family dynamics. Like, there's certain things that you have to experience before you're really able. I mean, you see people on social media and stuff like that are in their 20s on a yacht, and that's the big thing you see right now.
Right.
And they developed some software in their basement. I mean, that's why they're there. They didn't build a dental laboratory with tons of employees.
And a lot of them rent the yacht for the weekend, and they're maxed out their credit cards just to create that video.
Right.
Monday they're back on the unemployment line, and so you never know with social media, it could go anywhere. So
but that's the one thing that if I could go back and talk to my younger self, would be to try to just to be able to ask yourself, is that part worth it? And at the time, you couldn't have told me nothing at the time.
Well, and I think too, we maybe done some things backwards, but I think if you build the business to a point, like we go back to how you can scale the business to where it's not running you. You're actually operating from a standpoint that does free up a lot of time. If you're passionate about whatever it is outside of the business, that will then set you up to be able to do that more if you want to. So a lot of people, again, it goes back to just where you're at within the business and how it's operating and how you're operating within it. So the goal would be to try to alleviate your time, but like you said, buy back your time, like Dan Martell says, to where you can work on passion projects or be passionate about whatever that is.
Right.
So
I just don't feel as passionate about it anymore.
Well, and that changes too. Yeah, your journey changes, but you also, a lot of this passion probably was, before you had kids. I know you got kids now and all that kind of stuff, and they're getting to the point where you're spending more time with them. So yeah, your passion is going to be them.
Right.
On most days.
Probably one of the silliest things is I wish I had this business knowledge right now so I could implement it back into the stuff that I was doing outside of my business.
That's just part of and a lot of people don't get to that point. They don't get that point in their journey, and that's something you got to learn a lot of times. Like if you get to the point where that's why self-improvement is always important, that it finally starts to click and you see that. Sometimes it takes longer than it could have or should have. But the key is just learning that wherever you are within the journey of the business. So, well, this is great. Would anybody, if they want to get a hold of you after listening to this, just reach out to your social media? Is that good? If anybody wants to get a hold of you,
feel free to reach out to me. It's My Denture Coach.
Yeah,
I'm on all platforms.
I know you do a lot of webinars and stuff within that space too.
I do webinars. I'm on YouTube. If you wanted to watch any of my webinars, I do. I've done a few on Zon Academy.
Awesome. Well, great, man. I really appreciate this. Everybody, this has been a great podcast. It's been a great topic, technology, automation. Again, we're really true believers in this. This is, John, somebody within his business that's been able to scale his business and his industry and be at the forefront of it. So it's been a great conversation. And again, at the end of the day, this conversation is just the tip.